And balloons, too. All colors.
Do they float?
Oh, yes. They float, Georgie. They float.
Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by MrDeathBreath. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. You've had some amazing guests like Frankie G from Saw 2, Jen Nangle, aka Olivia, who's a sweetheart. I mean, I'm honored to be a guest. Thank you.
No, man, this is so awesome for me. For those of you that don't know, he does spoiler-free movie reviews as well as also celebrity interviews. On his channel, he'll tell you the good and the bad without spoiling the film. And all the links for him are right down here in the description. So you don't have to go searching for him. I brought him right to you. So make sure you're throwing him a sub. Make sure you're following him on social media. I promise you won't regret it. We've become close friends pretty quick. And so this is something that's also a very big honor for me. So what can you tell people about your channel before they go diving into it?
I was going to make a comment that you basically did the perfect introduction, because I usually go, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. I do spoiler-free film reviews and sometimes they're interviews. And I'm like, when you were saying what you said, I was kind of like nodding at you and kind of going, all right, because you said it perfectly. I'm like, I have nothing to say. Like, you introduced me perfectly. Like,
I try to do a little bit of homework before we start doing these things.
Man, minus like my ADD, like, hamster on crank energy I have, you did a fantastic introduction. I have nothing to say, so thank you.
No problem, man. So like I said, guys, make sure you are following him on social media, liking everything he does. It's all down here in the description. So that's the last time I'm going to plug it until the end, which I'm going to do it again because it's my show and I want to. But the reason we are here today, sir, is we are here to talk about what got you started in the horror genre. You are obviously a very big horror fan, much like myself. So I want to know where your roots got planted. So let's go back to the past. Your first horror movie was...
Okay, so I cheated on the questionnaire. Heads up, whoever gets on this his amazing interview, he asks you a questionnaire. And I cheated because the first movie I technically saw was Night of the Living Dead, the 1968 one. But the one that made me afraid, the one that just terrified me, was the miniseries It with Tim Curry. That's the one that got me. Yeah, that one. Actually, I don't know if you can tell, but I have both of them. So
dude,
I have
that's
Curry
so
and
dope.
then I have Skarsgård. Yeah. So yeah, that's the one that just freaked me out. Like, I remember panicking, running out of my apartment, and I was crying, as I'm not ashamed to say, but definitely embarrassed to mention. I cried like a baby, like Georgie winking and the doo 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 and the bleeding, the bleeding picture, the picture frame. Like, my gosh, like, that is so terrifying. It just doesn't make sense. Like, who would have thought about that? And that just set me off. Like, still gives me a sense of anxiety thinking about it because it's so bananas,
And it's funny you say that because that's a scene that always stuck with me, because you look at pictures all the time, and we grew up, obviously we're a little older. So, a lot of people still do it, but we grew up with photo albums and shit like that. That's what we did. We didn't have photo albums on a phone. I had physical photo albums, and that's what I would look through. And that scene always got to me too. But before we get there, how old were you the first time you watched the It miniseries? And by the way, Night of the Living Dead 68 is a fucking phenomenal movie. I wish we would have talked about that one, but dude, I love It miniseries as well.
We can talk about it too.
Dead,
why not?
Yeah, such a fantastic film. But how old were you the first time you saw the It miniseries?
I might have been 11 going on 12, I think. Yeah, probably. Gosh, man. That movie.
What a moldable age too.
That's where I got terrified for the rest of my life, dude. Like, it wasn't even... So Night of the Living Dead was just awesome because, like, that's zombie Jesus. He made everything. He's the creator. Like, zombies are what we know because our Lord and Savior, George Romero, who gave us the best zombies, right? But then it's like, I also had that point where I did It, and then shortly thereafter, I watched A Nightmare on Elm Street. And that's another one that terrified me. And you know what got me with that? The cover art. If Nancy doesn't wake up screaming, she won't wake up at all. So translation, Baby Death Breath. If Mr. Baby Death Breath doesn't wake up screaming, he won't wake up at all. I couldn't sleep for a month. I was crying because I couldn't go to sleep. And again, this was 12 going on 13. So I'm at that point where I should be like a big tough dude. I'm just like crying like a baby because I don't want to be killed by Mr. Finger Hands or Knife Hands.
And it's funny because I've had people on the show, a lot of people, some people don't like horror that come on the show. And the reason why is because of their first horror movie. And I had a guest on here that talked about A Nightmare on Elm Street. And that movie affected him so bad, the rod scene where he gets hung with the sheet, that he didn't sleep with sheets on his bed, for a long time. So there are times where, we watch our first horror movie and it completely scares us to where we don't want to watch horror movies anymore. or the opposite. We watch it and we catch that, you know, adrenaline, and we want to keep searching for that all the time. So, now I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but which scene from the miniseries was it that really affected you the most?
The Georgie blinking scene, man. The Georgie blinking scene. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, when I step over a sewer grate, I still look and still get that little, you know. But the Georgie blinking scene, like, you know, I don't know about you or anyone else that's listening, but you know, when you're up too late and you feel like, I feel like when you're up too late, you're more susceptible to potentially seeing things that you shouldn't be seeing, or maybe you're imagining it. However you want to take it, whichever avenue of thought you want to go with. But I've had it where I was looking at my T-shirt in the mirror and I swear it blinked at me. And it was a Grady Twin shirt. And this was recently. So I think that was my mind playing tricks on me. But that's why that scene is so important now. Because it plays on that primal, unexplained, what? Did that really just happen? You know? Right. So that scene just messed me up. Until this day, still does. Because of that.
And even that crooked smile little Georgie has when he does the wink, and he still got that smile. You're like, oh, it's such a powerful scene, man. And it's one, like I said, it affects me too. In a movie, and people oft forget, this never was a cinematic film. This was a TV miniseries, much like, you know, The Langoliers, and Sometimes They Come Back, and some of Stephen King's other work, Rose Red. And it doesn't get the credit it deserves for being a TV miniseries, because for the budget they had for this film, it looks great. I love the It miniseries. And this is the reason I'm talking about this, is this is leading me into my next question for you. We have the It miniseries and we have the It film. Now, much like the miniseries, I consider it one film. The It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 to me is the same film. You just couldn't release a 6-hour opus to put it all together.
Totally.
Now,
couldn't agree more.
In those films, you have Tim Curry's Pennywise, you have Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise. Which one of those is your favorite and why?
All right, here comes the crucifixion. My favorite. But I'm going to break it into films because I feel like the characters kind of change a little bit, okay? But my favorite is It Chapter 1 because it's modernized. Like, what Tim Curry did is amazing, but it's still stuck within a human realm. Like, Tim Curry's performance feels more like a creepy, sadistic pedophile or like a creepy stranger, but still very human-like. While Bill Skarsgård, it seems like some ethereal being. It seems like they literally went into the multiverse or the netherverse, whatever they call it, and they captured, you know, Bob Gray and held him with some interdimensional weapons and kept him there and set. He never seems like there's any humanity with Bill Skarsgård does. That's why I love that more. But I love both iterations. But if I had to give an edge on one, saying that they're both 10s, or like if it's both an A, I would say that Bill Skarsgård gets an A+. But only for the first film. Because the second film, the second half, it's just like, wow, like way to build everything up and then just like use demolition TNT to bring it all down and make it garbage. Like the second half of the miniseries is better than the new second half of the new film. I mean, the second half's unwatchable. It's terrible. Like, how do you tell a cohesive story that's supposed to be in the present when you keep going back to the past? Which was my biggest critique of it. It makes zero sense. And maybe we get the giant spider beat down and like this is battery acid slime from like a 40-year-old man. And maybe it doesn't hold up, but it still is a better film than the second half of the new one.
So, we're going to disagree completely here on two different areas. Okay. One, I love the fact that Tim, and again, Bill Skarsgård, listen, he knocked it out of the park. He did great. A lot of the practical stuff he did with his eyes, his voice, he was amazing. He was phenomenal. I love Bill Skarsgård. But I love the fact that Tim Curry's is an approachable clown.
Totally.
Like as a little kid, if I seen Bill Skarsgård's clown, I'd be like, fuck that. That thing's scary as hell. But with Tim Curry's, it's like, I would approach him. You know, he would be easier to capture me because he looks like a fun clown. And I will also go as far as to say, It Chapter 2 is my favorite of the four. The reason why, I think Bill Hader's performance alone
Bill Hader's amazing in that movie.
Any acting performance. And listen, I'm not knocking any of the kids from the miniseries or the first one. They are fucking phenomenal, and I would kill to have a pinky's worth of acting that those kids have. But Bill Hader's performance to me, and I think it's because I've always known Bill Hader as comedic actor, but when I see Bill Hader as the Bill Hader he was in It Chapter 2, he blew me away. He absolutely, I cry every time I watch the movie because of him. I laugh every time I watch the movie because of him. And that's one of the best horror acting performances I've ever seen in my entire life. So I think that's why It Chapter 2. Now listen, I completely agree. I don't completely agree with you. Clown to death. I think that's one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my life.
You're just a clown.
Yeah, but Bill Hader just completely. I was enamored with his character from start to end. You know, like the first time he walks up, he's like, "You guys look great. The fuck happened to me?" You know, like you have all these little things that Bill Hader does that reminds you of Richie Tozier from the original. And you know, when he kills Henry Bowers, he's like, "That was overdue. Get it? We're in a library." Oh, and then he just pukes. You know, like it was brilliant, man. He was brilliant. So I got to give the edge to that one, just strictly on Bill Hader's performance alone.
Totally.
But let's get back to the miniseries here for a little bit.
You know what? Let me add something really quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So when I interviewed Brandon Crane, if anyone that doesn't know, Brandon Crane's the original Ben Hanscom. He actually said what you said verbatim. He said that he likes the original Pennywise the Clown because he's more approachable. Which, you know, I totally get that, and I totally agree. And also, you know, I have to give it Bill Hader and Wolf Fingard are really the only two actors in the new film that are good. Because I think the rest, oh yeah, Sophia Lillis. I'll give it to Sophia Lillis as well. But the rest of the new actors really didn't have any way of pulling me in. They didn't have that heart as opposed to the miniseries actors like Jonathan Brandis or Seth Green. They had this real likability and they felt like really fleshed out characters as opposed to shells. So I like most of the original and of course, you know, for the exception of the new three. So
right. And it's one of those things where to me it's like, do I want a hamburger or a taco? You know, each night it's going to be different. One night I might crave the hamburger. The next night I might crave the taco. But either way, I love both foods and I'll eat them both no matter what. So
totally, I agree. I love hamburger.
You can't really go wrong. To me, there's no wrong answer when it comes to It the miniseries and It the film because I'm a big fan of both of them for completely different reasons. So I completely agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah, like
so when you think of the miniseries, you know, someone walks up, they're like, "Yo, It the miniseries." What's the first thing that pops into your head?
The soundtrack, the score.
Nice.
The score is so iconic, dude. Just that opening, that blah, blah. I can't do it. I sound like an idiot. But that opening, that dun 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 dun, it's like it's actually my ringtone. We're just like ding ding ding. Like okay, like you know Billy Idol, right? You familiar with them?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, of course. Well, the guitar player was talking about how anytime he has a song, he always puts in a stinger. Like for instance, for White Wedding, you hear that digga 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 digga, right?
Yeah.
You hear that opening. So with the It miniseries, you hear that. Like you know exactly what it is, and it's such a unique and iconic score, and I love it because I have it as my ringtone. I love listening to it. I have it on a Spotify list with scores, and it's just amazing. Like the score is synonymous with everything about the miniseries, and that's something that the remake doesn't have. It doesn't have that audio identity that makes it so iconic. Like it's missing that, you know.
Proof in the pudding right here. When you see Stan in the bathroom with his wrist cut.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, like that totally to me too. That's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, of the whole miniseries, is the score at that one part because it's so perfect for what you're trying to. It's circus like, but it's sad and it's you know melancholy, but it's uplit. It's a little bit of everything all at once, man.
Totally, dude. Gives you chills, man. It's like
really
such
does.
a like cold slap in the face, like pop. It's like gosh.
So we talked, Mr. Deathbreath, about which scene affected you the most, but I want to go to the other end of the spectrum here. What is your favorite scene from the It miniseries?
Oh, I never really thought about that, funny enough. But if I have to say my favorite scene, it's when they're down by the Barrens and Brandon Crane sees his dad. And it's just so strange because like the way they set the scene up, it's like it almost feels okay because you see his father, but then it just feels very like it's like something feels off. You know, like that person that's smiling too much, but their eyes are fixed in a very primal way. Like you know, kind of like the Black Hole Sun video by Soundgarden when everyone's like, like everything feels like this seems okay, but it's not. And when he's like, "Hey Stan," or not Stan,
Ben.
Hey Ben, you know, he's like, "Come on here, we float," and you start hearing like the facade fall apart, and then he's just a clown. He's like. It's just like that scene, man. It's just like it has this psychological thing where he comes across benevolent, but it's the exact opposite. He's malevolent. He's actually out to get him. It's like, and it's just the way the Barrens look, like that whole area, like that's a real place. And it just really, it's a beautiful shot. It's really disarming because you see his father, and then it's like there's a sinister undertone that takes over, and it's just an amazing scene. It's unforgettable.
So, and it's funny because that's not a scene that gets talked about a lot because, and I don't blame people because there's a lot of really amazing scenes here. But like you said, he almost deteriorates in front of him because
Yes.
he sees him as his dad. Then he's a skeleton with the clown
Oh,
puffs
yeah.
on him. And then he's just Pennywise, you know, and he points
Yeah.
over at the sewer, you
Oh,
know, and it's
God.
just, yeah, such an amazing scene. And something I'm a big fan of is one of my favorite horror movies of all time is An American Werewolf in London. And something I
That
love
is an
about
amazing
that
movie. Amazing
yeah,
movie. One of my
every
favorites.
single time you see him, he's deteriorated more and more. Like he's a vision, but he's also decomposing and he's getting worse every time that you see him. So like taking that much love and like I think when it comes to practical effects, my top 3 favorite movies when it comes to practical effects in no order are A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Thing, and American Werewolf in London. You know, American Werewolf in London has the best werewolf the best werewolf transformation
of all time. Till this day. Yeah. Like till this day.
Ginger Snaps is close. But man, you can't beat American Werewolf in London.
Ginger Snaps is amazing. But you know what? Ginger Snaps is an amazing movie through and through, especially the whole allegory of becoming a woman, which is phenomenal. But more specifically, like American Werewolf in London is just a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And then what's with like the Nazi dead zombies? And it's just like he wakes up, that's a terrible dream. Sees him again. Oh, it's just like dude.
Have you watched the Creep Show TV show on Shudder?
I haven't yet. I haven't had access. I tried, and then it disappeared off Amazon Plus or Amazon Prime, and I'm like, dang it. So,
dude, they have a whole episode that's based around Nazi werewolves.
Oh my gosh!
It totally gives you an American Werewolf in London vibe, and it's so fucking cool, dude. Like I watched it. That's all I could think, man. And it's such a dope scene. But let's get back to it for a little bit here. I want to go.
Let me get water real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
it's hot out here. Give me a second.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Thanks. I'd offer you one, but you know, I can't really pass it.
Just pour it right on the camera. So we're going to go dark here for a second. We talked about which scene affected you the most, and we talked about your favorite scene. But now, as horror fans, we love the kills. Which kill or death from It is the most impacted you the most? I don't want to say your favorite, but which one stuck with you the most?
Are we talking just the miniseries or?
Yeah, in the miniseries. Yeah, just in the miniseries.
You know, I'm going to be honest. I'm drawing a blank because I feel like I've seen that movie so many times. It kind of just blends. So honestly, I don't have a proper answer, and I don't want to make one up and give something that's not sincere. So I don't know. But I mean, the whole film as a whole just had a great amount of violence in it, and it was well done. But if pretend that you didn't ask me the question and you said, you know, all It's, I would have definitely said that it would have been the Patrick Hunksinger death in the remake, because that was really intense. You know what I mean? Yeah. But as for the miniseries, I don't know. There wasn't really any kills that really stood out because I feel like it was less on the violence and more on the psychological terror.
You don't have all that many. I mean, you got Henry Bowers, you got George, you got Elch. I mean, like you said, it's not any that are super memorable, but the ones that happened to me are just so epic. I mean, obviously, you know, you got Georgie's, which I feel is people will use that as a cliche answer, but to me personally, man, Eddie's was always heartbreaking because he's, you know, he's got that courage. He's like, this is battery acid, you slide. Yeah. Grabs him like the most weak death ever, just breaking him. But
you know, you just gave me an answer. Actually, you gave me an answer. You just made me figure it out. Henry Bowers' death. That was pretty wild because how he's standing there and then he suddenly just gets folded up like a sandwich, and he gets pulled into that incredibly small pipe. Belch.
Yeah.
That death got me because that was just terrifying. How those lights are going by and he just gets folded over and he's just like in the state of like almost like it's just so freaky how someone that big gets folded that small and pulled through that pipe. Because I don't like claustrophobia. I got an MRI for a hurt wrist and I was almost like panicking, and he gets folded up and pulled through a pipe. So that death, there it is. That's the one.
There we go. So we talked about your first horror movie and how that movie affected you and how it got you started in the genre. But now, my friend, I'm going to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, my gosh. Honestly, I'm not sure. So I'm just going to go with one that I really enjoy. Oh, gosh, that's so hard. You asked me the hardest question. I don't know, because there's so many movies, so many great
Just films. As a reminder to everybody out there, I do send my questions off to people so they kind of have an idea of what I'm going to be asking. This is one that I never send because I always want a spur of the moment answer on this. I don't want people to research this one and think about it. I just want you to say what comes to your mind.
All right, I'm going to get a lot of crap for this one. Less of a horror movie, more of a psychological thriller. But I have to say Signs. And I know that's a totally unexpected answer.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, I love Freddy, I love Jason, I love a lot of Myers movies. I love all the the big four, the big three, whatever you want to include. But it's just that movie gets in my head, where it's like you could be in the middle of nowhere and that movie will have an effect on you. And I guess it's less of a traditional horror movie, more of a psychological movie. But it just, you can be in the middle of nowhere and that film resonates with you. You could be in a dark room, that film resonates with you. And it's such a tangible thing, like especially now, currently with the FBI and Homeland Security releasing more alien info. It just adds more weight to it. So I have to go with
Tom
Signs. Hey, no. I'm not crazy, okay? I believe aliens exist. There's a difference. I respect
man, you got to look at all the small things, no matter what your age is. Again.
But even that score is amazing. That da-da-dun. I mean,
I love Signs. I'm one of the people that I love Shyamalan. I've always been a huge Shyamalan fan. The second date that me and my wife actually had together, we sat in her basement and we watched The Village. And I dig that movie, man. I know a lot of people call it, but I dug that movie. I thought it was really good. And obviously, it's like this. That was the first movie that my wife and I watched that wasn't in the cinema. Our first date was to see War of the Worlds, and then our second date was hanging out in her basement watching The Village. And I've been a huge Shyamalan fan ever since. Obviously, Unbreakable, The Sixth Sense, Devil is one of my favorite.
Devil, such an underrated. Even The Visit was wild. Like I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
That was unexpected, but Old looks kind of stupid. Like, I don't know, I'll watch it, but it doesn't look good.
That's one of the things, though. Every time I watch a Shyamalan trailer, I'm like, this doesn't look all that great. And then I go in and I'm like, that's fucking awesome.
Okay, you know what? That's fine.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how I always feel with Shyamalan. Like, what was the last one? Glass.
The Happening?
What was the one after Glass?
Split.
You had Split and then Glass. I watched the trailer for Glass and I was like, I don't know. I loved Unbreakable. I absolutely adored Split. But then I was like, Glass, I don't know. And then I left the theater like, that was fucking dope. I'm such an idiot for not wanting to go. So, man, we always end our podcast with the same question. We're going to go back to the It miniseries, and we're going to be ranking this 0 to 5 skulls, 0 being the worst and 5 being the best. Right now, we're not being film critics. We're not ranking it on overall production, acting, score, etc. We are ranking this movie strictly on what it means to you and how this movie affected you upon first visit. So 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. You can use half and quarter skulls. What would your ranking be of the It miniseries?
5 skulls. It's my childhood, man. Like, I mean, honestly, I have 3 guys on me. This is, Pennywise. I have Jason because I was afraid of him. I don't know if I could be seen. And then I have Freddy.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that hit me the most. Those are the ones that terrified me. I was afraid of Jason because he was always everywhere. I didn't want to be. Like, Freddy's always in my dreams. And then It is everywhere as well. So it's like, honestly, it's an amazing movie. It's my childhood. I love it. It's amazing. It's a little dated, but it's held up well and I love it.
The first SledgeHammer horror merchandise that was ever created was this.
Oh, sick.
You got the SledgeHammer horror half Jason mask. That's how much that movie affected me. That's how much that means to me. Friday the 13th Part 3 goes down to me as one of my favorite movies of all time, not just in the horror genre, but because I watched it so much as a child. My favorite horror movie will always be House from 1986. Nice. That movie is the first one I ever watched. It means the world to me. I still watch it 5 or 6 times a year. You got House, you got Jaws, The Shining, and American Werewolf in London. These are all movies I watch at least 3, 4, 5 times a year. Dr. Sleep and Cabin in the Woods are creeping up that list with the Evil Dead franchise. So I mean, there's so many movies that I just right here, man. It's always behind me.
Oh, be careful with that, man. Don't go in there, man.
Yeah.
Dude, Dr. Sleep, absolute masterpiece. I mean, it took them almost 40 years, and they made an amazing sequel. It's like none of that rush studio crap. Like, it was just amazing. Like, it's almost like statistically speaking, they should have screwed up, and they didn't. It's like it's actually better than The Shining because they take the concept and blow it higher than it is. It outshines The Shining.
The reason I think that Dr. Sleep is what it is because of Mike Flanagan.
Totally.
Mike Flanagan is a genius, and he made that movie. What he did with that movie, I feel like he sat in a room and was like, we're going to make a film that could stand on its own.
Oh,
but the
yeah.
third act is going to be all Shining references.
Oh.
But if the first and second act of that movie, if you'd have told me this had nothing to do with The Shining, it was just based in the same universe, I'd have totally believed it. Until they get to the Overlook, and you got him looking in the door and the meeting with him and his dad at the bar, which is one of the best scenes in cinema history. But like, it's just one of those things where Dr. Sleep does not get the recognition it deserves. Mike Flanagan, as a director, does not get the recognition he deserves. I feel like he is the closest thing to a genius I've ever seen in my lifetime, whether it be Oculus, Ouija, Origins of Evil, Dr. Sleep. He's done all these movies. Before I Wake, which is a severely underrated gem. The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor. Everything that Mike Flanagan touches, he is the fucking King Midas of horror, because everything he touches is gold. You could tell me that there's a movie of Mike Flanagan staring in a mirror for an hour and a half and at the end going boo, I'd jump, just because that suspense would be so great.
He needs, hear me out for a second. Okay, this is gonna be a rough one. He needs to reboot the Nightmare series. We need to completely do a whole different thing, make a different type of Freddy, but like Mike Flanagan, take full reign of it. Let him do unique dream sequences, something we've never seen before, and just go full, like what he did for Dr. Sleep, he needs to do for a Nightmare series, because that would work. But they need to step away from Robert Englund, and it would be amazing. Give him the wheel, he'll take it.
I would rather see a Nightmare on Elm Street, the series, like a TV series, where you have, because they had, Freddy's Nightmares when I was a kid, the TV show. But do something like that now, like as a Prime or a Shudder original, a Nightmare on Elm Street, maybe like a 6-episode run. In each episode, it's like an anthology. Each episode is a new character that Freddy's with. I just feel like that could be so dynamite and tie it together at the end.
So how do we get you to make this? That's what we should do. We should get you to put a hand on this. That's a great idea. Like, you get everyone's different nightmare. Maybe they can unite in the final episode, be like a little Avengers and fight Freddy in some interesting way. Because that's a great idea, dude.
Because you could have the ending be almost a reboot of the Dream Warriors, where they all get together and they fight Freddy.
Yes. That's an amazing idea. Man,
so we copyrighted this, by the way. No one else. We're writing this tonight.
I'm your witness. I'm here. You and Mike Flanagan in the room. Make it happen.
Don't go anywhere, Mr. Deathbreath. I have a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you're clicking these links down here in the description and showing him some fucking love. I would appreciate it just as much as I know he would appreciate it. As always, guys, keep talking horror. Stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.